Hello and welcome back to another episode of Reacting with me, the Wise James. Normally I do like drama stuff, like dating, just random drama stuff. But I'm going to try something different. I'm going to react to this science video. Now this guy's called Simon Whistler. I've always watched his videos for quite a while now. Not all of them, but quite a lot of them. He's a very intelligent man. He knows what he's talking about. He seems to specialise in military concepts and understanding, but he knows his shit. He really knows his shit. Now, normally, I would try and correct people, but with him, I'm going to really struggle because 99% of everything he says is going to be correct. So it isn't going to be a case of me correcting him, more reacting and stating my opinion, because either he'll be right or he'll be as accurate as possible, so it will be slightly different. But yeah, if you do want to watch some of his videos, he's got two different channels. One's called Mega Projects, one's called Side Projects. He's a British guy. He's quite entertaining. He's basically this beard that is attached to a man. And maybe the beard is what is intelligent, and the man is just like the body that it uses. No, let's get into it. So the video I'm watching is Most Incredible Lost Cities, which will be interesting. So, as much as drama and that, women love that, I'm far more interested in stuff like this. This is my sort of thing.
Throughout human history, countless civilizations have risen and fallen, leaving behind extensive settlements, towns, and even sprawling cities, many of which have completely vanished. Over time, these lost cities faded into legend, remembered only through fantastical tales dismissed as just a myth. Now, in some cases, cities lay abandoned for so long that they were forgotten altogether, only to be rediscovered centuries later by people who had no idea that they even existed in the first place. And today, we're going to explore 10 of these incredible lost cities, and note that this list excludes places like Machu Picchu and Petra, since while they were unknown to outsiders for a time, they were never truly lost, having remained in the memory and awareness of local communities. Let's jump in. Troy, Turkey. In Homer's Iliad, Troy is portrayed as one of the great cities of the Bronze Age, famed for its walls so formidable that they were said to have been built by the gods Poseidon and Apollo themselves. These divine fortifications proved invaluable during the mythologized 10-year siege of the Trojan War, which began when the Greeks set out to reclaim the beautiful Helen, who had been taken by Paris, prince of the city-state. Although Troy was once widely regarded in the ancient world as a real city, the events described in the Iliad are believed to have occurred sometime in the 13th century BC. Over time, the city was lost, and many came to see the entire tale as nothing more than a poetic invention of Homer's imagination. That perception persisted until the late 19th century, when excavations at a site in Turkey reignited belief in the cities.
So the city was lost until the 1800s. That is incredible. For being in Central Europe, that's pretty remarkable, really.
Historical foundation. Now, the first excavations, they were carried out by Frank Calvert in 1863, but it was the later work of Heinrich Schliemann, who excavated the site from 1870 to 1890, that truly brought Troy back into public awareness. Schliemann was convinced that the site was the legendary city and was determined to prove it. His work yielded astonishing results.
I will have to skip the adverts, obviously. I haven't got premium.
9 distinct cities had been built on top of one another, representing at least 46 layers of habitation spanning thousands of years. Convinced that the city of legends lay in the lowest layers, Schliemann infamously used dynamite to dig as deep as possible, showing little regard for the historical layers that he destroyed in the process.
Dynamite is not a very good digging method for archaeology. Great for mining, because you're trying to blow it to bits anyway. But for archaeology, all you're doing is destroying ancient relics that historians needed to study. Like, you're destroying evidence.
In his view, his approach was vindicated when he uncovered gold and silver jewelry, storage vessels, and other artifacts that he believed belonged to the ancient Trojans. Unfortunately for Schliemann, later analysis revealed that these artifacts were roughly 1,000 years older than the events described in the Iliad, and the site proved to be far older and more complex than he or anyone else had ever imagined possible. Just before we continue with today's video, I want to say that it's brought to you by, weird your IPS because you've used Surfshark, which allows right now to decide dating from stone the victim post level.
So that was Simon Whistler's paid promotion. Obviously, I'm going to skip it because, I'm already giving him free advertising. I'm not going to give his advertisers free advertising on top of his free advertisement. No.
Meanwhile, Troy 3 through 5, spanning 2250 to 1750 BC, have proven much more difficult to reconstruct. These layers suffered significant damage or were carelessly destroyed during early excavations, making detailed study a challenge. Troy 6, which dates from roughly 1750 to 1300 BC, stands out as one of the most impressive phases in the city's history and is the level most often associated with the Troy of Homer's Iliad.
If you would like to actually know more about Troy, watch the movie Troy with Brad Pitt in it. Very good movie, actually. Very, very good movie.
Now, during this period, the city was fortified with massive limestone walls that reached up to 8 meters or 26 feet tall and 5 meters or 16 feet thick.
Troy is the Greek city where was it the Trojans brought the horse and hid inside of it and offered it as a gift, and then in the middle of the night, whenever everyone was asleep, snuck out of the horse and wiped out the city. If I remember correctly, which is where the phrase "I wouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth" comes from. But it might have been not Troy, but I think it was. Could be mistaken.
These walls were reinforced by
Simon would know. He'll know.
towers and accessed via 5 monumental gateways. Archaeological evidence from this layer points to a thriving wool industry, a strong connection with horses, and a population likely numbering around 10,000.
A strong connection with horses would be the reason why they chose a giant horse as the gift, you see. Because this city had impenetrable walls. You couldn't literally get past the walls, so they had to somehow get inside to take over.
All consistent with Homer's descriptions of a wealthy and powerful city. There's also evidence that Troy 6 was violently destroyed, possibly by an earthquake or by siege and fire, mirroring the sack of Troy depicted in the Iliad. Yet the story of Troy did not end with that destruction. Later layers reveal Greek and Roman buildings and artifacts, suggesting that the city remained significant well into classical antiquity. Ultimately, it seems that a shifting coastline, which cut Troy off from its vital maritime trade routes, led to its final decline, rather than the flames of mythic war. Helike in Greece. As the second city on today's list with ties to Greek myth, and spoiler alert, it won't be the last, it should come as no surprise that many have questioned whether Helike was even a real place. Allegedly founded during the Mycenaean period by Ion, leader of the Ionians, Helike arose to become one of the most important cities of antiquity. According to Homer, it fought for the Greeks during the Trojan War and was so influential that it became the capital of the 12 cities of ancient Achaea and the head of the Achaean League. Historical sources also describe Helike as one of the most significant religious sites in ancient Greece, perhaps second only to the Oracle at Delphi, thanks to its grand temple of Poseidon. In addition, the city was reportedly a major cultural hub, minting its own coins and founding several colonies, including Sybaris, the most famous Greek city in southern Italy. Eventually, myth tells us that Poseidon, enraged at the expulsion of the Ionians from Helike, submerged the entire city in a fit of divine wrath in 373 BC, an event often believed to have inspired the legend of Atlantis.
For those who are unaware of Greek mythology, Poseidon is the brother of Zeus and Hades, the demigods of ancient Greece and their religion, which would be called paganism in today's terms. Although some people would disagree, they weren't demigods. They controlled aspects of nature on Earth. They weren't the outright almighty creator of the universe. So Zeus controlled the land and the sky. Poseidon controlled the sea, and I think he controlled the air as well, something else. And Hades obviously controlled the underworld, which was the version of hell Christianity got their idea from. Like, the underworld was because we buried our dead. So people obviously wanted to believe our loved ones existed in the realm beyond after death. Because we buried them underground. You know, it ended up getting called the underworld. And then eventually the Romans adopted it and changed it into hell and ruled by Satan. Yeah, it was different, obviously. Used to be Hades, now Satan's in charge.
For years, many in the Hellenic world, including the famed philosopher and mathematician Eratosthenes, visited the Gulf of Corinth in the northern Peloponnese and reported sightings of a submerged city beneath the waves. Over time, however, these accounts faded and Helika became yet another legendary cautionary tale about the consequences of angering the gods. Now, of course, as is often the case with legendary cities, not everybody believed that Helika was just a myth. Many sought to uncover its remains, frequently searching in the Gulf of Corinth under the assumption that the city lay submerged beneath the waves. In 1988, archaeologist Dora Katsanapoulou and physicist Stephen Sota launched the Helika Project, an initiative solely dedicated to finding the lost city. Over the next 12 years, the team conducted painstaking work, which included underwater sonar scans, geological surveys, and drilling boreholes, all in the hopes of locating Helika. In 2001, they finally succeeded. Surprisingly, the city was discovered further inland than anyone had expected. This finding led to a major realization. For years, everybody had simply been looking in the wrong...
Everyone had simply been looking in the wrong place. I knew what he was going to say, see? Smart.
wrong place. Rather than being swallowed whole by the sea, as the myths suggested, Helika was actually sunk by an earthquake and then overwhelmed by a tsunami that likely washed over the city. These natural disasters formed a lagoon that temporarily submerged the city in antiquity. Over time, the lagoon dried up, leaving Helika buried beneath the coastal plains near the Gulf. Following this breakthrough, the team began excavating the ancient city. Helika itself proved impressive. Its remains included buried buildings, city walls, poetry, coins, a large complex, and all the markers of a once thriving Hellenic hub. Yet what truly astonished the researchers was their nearby discovery: the remains of an early Bronze Age town dating back roughly 2,000 years before Helika's peak. The earlier settlement revealed some of the best preserved examples of early Hellenic architecture, circa 2600 to 2300 BC. Featured cobbled streets and clear signs of a thriving community. Ironically, evidence suggests that this older town may have met the same fate as Helika's, and it is entirely possible that the Ionians themselves nurtured myths of a once great nearby city, destroyed by the wrath of the gods long before their own was lost to similar forces. Vilcabamba in Peru. Now, of all the lost civilizations throughout history, few have captured the hearts and imaginations of armchair archaeologists quite like those of Latin America, and it is really easy to see why. When the Spanish conquistadors invaded Peru in 1532, it took less than 50 years for the Inca to fall from the status of the largest empire in pre-Columbian America to little more than just a memory, along with their once thriving cities and settlements. The Spanish invasion was swift and well organized. Soon after their arrival, the Incan emperor Atahualpa was executed and the capital city of Cusco fell. The surviving Inca were forced to flee in search of refuge. In 1539, they established a final stronghold at Vilcabamba, which became the capital of the Neo-Inca state and remained so until 1572. By then, the Spanish had closed in. According to various accounts, the Inca either set fire to their city and escaped into the jungle, or were overtaken by the conquistadors, who then destroyed Vilcabamba themselves. For years, scholars believed Vilcabamba lay somewhere in the Cusco region of Peru, but its exact location had been lost to history. Hiram Bingham III, who famously brought Machu Picchu to international...
That is some fucking name, that, isn't it? Hiram Bingham III. Wow. People aren't called the Third anymore, are they? He's just some dude.
Attention in 1911, believed he had discovered Vilcabamba and held firmly to that belief until his death in 1956. Little did he know that Machu Picchu and Vilcabamba were entirely different sites. He might have ground his teeth when he realized just how close he'd come. Approximately 80 kilometers or 50 miles west of Machu Picchu, hidden beneath dense Amazon rainforest and nestled in the shadow of the Andes, lay the true Vilcabamba, untouched for centuries. Although some locals knew of the place, calling it Espiritu Pamba, or Plain of the Spirits, few, if any, grasped its true historical significance. That changed, though, in 1964, when amateur archaeologist Jean Savoy identified the site, revealing its long-lost identity to the world. The 15-hectare site was eventually excavated, a process that continues to this very day, revealing an Incan settlement unlike any previously discovered. Among the findings were granite stone walls, residential buildings, agricultural terraces, cobbled streets, and temples. Many of these structures incorporated Spanish architectural elements, a unique feature of Vilcabamba that reflects the cultural inclusion of the era. This blend is especially striking in the ceramic vessels found at the site, which depict Andean and Amazonian peoples fighting side by side, often aided by jaguars, against the conquistador invaders.
Still better artwork than I can do. That's for sure. It's so amazing how people assume that ancient people were stupid, but this is a colour painting that's like thousands of years old. They had to make the paint. You know, they couldn't go to the shop and buy it. They had to make the paper. Couldn't go to the shop and buy it. Incredible skill, really.
As remarkable as these discoveries were, the most astonishing revelation came in 2010 when archaeologists unearthed artifacts linked to the Wari culture. Radiocarbon dating placed these items around 700 AD, suggesting that the site had been occupied far earlier than previously believed. The remnants of a Wari burial complex, a temple, and various artifacts provided valuable insight into a civilization that predated the Inca by centuries, significantly expanding our understanding of the region's deep and layered history.
Oh, adverts. Hate you. Hate you, adverts.
Thonis Heraklion in Egypt. As
There's been a lot of long lost cities, well, places in Egypt thought lost and then found because most recently, actually, we've been using technology that can scan under the desert, like under the sand, which we didn't previously have. And they found almost over 200 possible more pyramid sites as a result of a plane flying over Egypt. And it was the King's Valley, I think, specifically, or, you know, the area where all the pyramids are normally. But there was like 200 potential pyramids they found. And obviously they couldn't dig for all of them because some of them are under, you know, massive amounts of sand. But there's a lot of things out in the world undiscovered, still to this day. I know we have all this technology, but it's buried. It's hidden. We can't see it. You'd walk over it and not know it was there. Literally, you could walk through something and you wouldn't realise what it was. There's still secrets out there. There's just a lot less than there used to be.
promised, let us return to Greek mythology for our next entry, Thonis Heraklion. This was the place where Heracles is said to have first set foot in Africa. It was where Paris of Troy hid his beloved Helen from her husband Menelaus just before the Trojan War. Tragically, it later became the backdrop for one of the ancient world's most captivating lost cities. Located near modern-day Alexandria at the mouth of the Nile River in today's Abukir Bay, Thonis Heraklion was once a bustling Egyptian harbour city. Its cultural, economic, and religious significance was nearly unrivaled in its era. Founded in the 8th century BC, the city flourished for more than 1,600 years, until it mysteriously vanished around the 8th century AD. Serving as Egypt's main port, at least until the rise of Alexandria, it was a central hub familiar to almost everyone throughout the Mediterranean world. Yet despite its significance, the city's disappearance, likely caused by the clay soil underneath succumbing to liquefaction after natural disasters, led the world to essentially forget about it for over 1,000 years. That change.
Isn't liquefaction where mud instantly turns from a solid to a liquid and, like, falls off the side of a mountain and buries a population? Is that... I'm going to have to Google liquefaction. Wait there. One sec. I have to guess before I continue. Liquefaction. Definition. The process of making something, especially a gas liquid. Mud liquefaction. Or maybe it's clay instead of mud. Extreme soil liquefaction.
From idea to submission, empower
this.
students to do their best work with
Oh, fuck off adverts, honestly. Is that... that's what I was on about. Like an earthquake could shake soil and clay so much that it starts acting like a liquid instead of a solid. That was my understanding. I mean, I could be wrong. I could be wrong here.
in the late 1990s, when a team from the European Institute for Underwater Archaeology was drawn to the area while investigating the wrecks of 18th century French warships. Using advanced survey equipment and a skilled team of divers, they began mapping the underwater topography of the region. What they found went far beyond their original mission. A series of unexpected discoveries redirected their focus entirely toward the excavation of the long-lost city. Now first, the diving team uncovered fragments of ancient statues, pottery shards, jewels, while their survey equipment started detecting large underwater structures scattered all across the bay. As the dives continued, they discovered the remains of a sunken temple, an ancient stele detailing tax laws, submerged buildings, and other monumental remnants of a once thriving city that had been remarkably preserved. It soon became clear just how significant their discovery truly was. For years, ancient texts led scholars to believe that Thonis and Heraklion were two entirely separate cities, one Egyptian, the other Greek. Yet this site told a really different story. It was a remarkable fusion of both of these cultures. Beneath the water, Hellenic and Egyptian helmets lay side by side with Athenian perfume bottles, anchors from Greek ships, Cypriot statuettes, and countless other artifacts from both civilizations. Perhaps the most symbolic find was a figurine of Cleopatra III, who was an Egyptian queen of the Greek Ptolemaic dynasty depicted as the goddess Isis, yet carved with distinctly Hellenic features. This figurine perfectly embodied the cultural blending at the heart of this city. In the end, the site did more than offer insight into daily life. It rewrote history. It revealed that Thonis and Heraklion were not two separate cities divided geographically and culturally. Rather, they were a thriving metropolis that combined traits from both of these cultures. Its very name varying depending on whether you are...
It is possible that that society he's talking about now gave rise to the Roman Empire because they adopted the best parts of the cultures around them, and it led to, as the record suggests, success. So the Romans aren't far from that. Would have been like, instead of just sticking to our own and like ignoring everyone else's customs, why don't we just take the best from everyone else and use it ourselves? The Romans were very good at that. You know, they take the best weapons from other civilizations and cultures, their best technologies, and use them. Whereas, you know, other cultures like China and other cultures similar, or, you know, other cultures, would rather stick to their own traditions rather than adopt another culture's idea, because that would be almost heresy against your own. That's almost like racism against your own people, isn't it? So it was quite a rare thing for a culture back then to have multiple cultures such heavily influenced in them. You know, there was always little bits of influence here and there, but to have such a massive mix and match is very unheard of, which is why they would never guess it was the same place. They thought it was two different cities for hundreds of years. And no, it was the same place, essentially.
Asked a Greek or an Egyptian. Atlet Yam in Israel. During the 1960s, numerous submerged settlements and shipwrecks were discovered.
Bit of a hot topic right now. We'll leave the religion and politics out of this right now.
Off of Israel's Carmel coast along the Mediterranean. In response, marine archaeologist Ehud Galili launched a research project aimed at locating, excavating, and preserving these lost villages and artifacts. Since then, 17 submerged prehistoric sites have been uncovered, each dating back thousands of years and offering valuable insight into humanity's transition from a nomadic existence to urban life. Among these remarkable discoveries, the most extensive and awe-inspiring is undoubtedly Atlet Yam, which Galili discovered in 1984. While many archaeological sites challenge our
That really sounds like an Egyptian phrase if you pronounced it. That might just be because my understanding of Egyptian is basically the movie The Mummy, to be honest. So, Atlet Yam. It sounds like something they'd say in the movie The Mummy. Like something that the Mummy would say. I was trying to think of the word and I just said it. Brilliant. That's the clip for the reaction, I guess.
Which Galili discovered in 1984. While many archaeological sites challenge our understanding of history, Atlet Yam has played a pivotal role in shaping it, virtually writing the book on pre-pottery cultures and early human development in the region. Covering approximately 40,000 square meters, that's about 430,000 square feet, this submerged site is not only one of the largest ever found, but also among the oldest, dating back roughly 9,000 years to the 7th millennium BC. Located 8 to 12 meters, or 26 to 39 feet below sea level, and about 200 to 400 meters, or about 650 to 1,300 feet offshore, Atlit Yam offers an extraordinarily detailed glimpse into the daily lives of prehistoric people, predating Stonehenge by nearly 4,000 years.
Wow, that is impressive. Stonehenge is like estimated, 8,000 years old? Stonehenge age. Oh, 5,000 years old, I was wrong. But the earliest phases of Stonehenge was 3,000 BC. So, so 5,000 years, that's fine. I was wrong. I thought 8,000. So if it's 4,000 years older, that would be 7,000 BC, which is nearly 10,000 years old, what we're looking at here.
Despite this gap in the evidence, Atlit Yam was home to an extraordinary stone semicircle formed by large monoliths which experts believe...
The OG Stonehenge then, isn't it? The original Stonehenge. It's crazy to think that these stone circles are all over the planet, really, and nobody knows what they're for. We can only guess. And my guess is simply to be remembered or to leave their mark. You know, all humans kind of want to leave something good behind, if that makes sense. Whether it's money or a company, whatever, a house, an education. So if you were like a Stone Age person who's essentially a hunter-gatherer, you know, food's going to decay, you know, your clothes will decay, they're not going to last. The only thing, realistically, you could do to let people of the future know that you were there was stuff like that. If we didn't find these stone circles, we probably wouldn't have found the artifacts that were around them. Like their weapons and their houses, you know, because it would have been buried. So it may just be that they were smart enough to understand the future would look there and dig because of these circles. Maybe. But we honestly have no idea why most of these ancient cultures built Stonehenge and this. We have absolutely no clue. We can only guess. But my guess is they wanted us to dig. That's my guess. Not like keep digging, just like the Spartans said, remember us. That's all they asked. That's literally all they asked. Remember us. I know it's a movie, but I think that's what they wanted.
May have served a spiritual or ritualistic purpose. Equally striking are the rectangular foundations of ancient homes discovered at the site. These structures featured central hearths and...
See, look at that. That is literally... We're talking 9,000 years old, and it's basically a square house. Like... And people... You couldn't get, like, a group of men today who could build that without an iPhone and modern equipment. They just wouldn't be able to do it. There's a few old guys who have, like, 40 years experience, but you're talking about, like, a new guy who's just started his trade, 20, 30 years old. He couldn't do that without modern technology. He just couldn't do it. He could not do it.
Circular installations that were likely used for food storage. The village also boasted an impressive well, 1.5 meters or 5 feet wide and...
But if you looked, it's just literally broken stones. They're not even... The stones aren't all even. They're all different shapes. So someone's literally just hit these stones with a chisel to fit this perfectly into this beautiful mosaic walls of stone and brick and then filled in the side. Like, that's a handcrafted stone house with probably stone tools or... At very, very best, like, obsidian, maybe. Which is still technically stone, I think. Anyway, I'm not a geologist.
To food storage. The village also boasted an impressive well, 1.5 meters or 5 feet wide and 5.5 meters or 18 feet deep, with dry stone interior walling, suggesting it was built for communal use.
surely wells are classed as irrigation as well. So they literally had, water systems, not sewage and drainage, but
Artifacts uncovered at Atlet Yam include projectile points, axes, fish hooks,
yeah, they look like obsidian weapons. Yeah. Yeah. They definitely look like obsidian weapons or stone weapons of some kind. Arrowheads is B, or spearheads there. These look like javelin heads. These are axes, these. I'm guessing hatchets for chopping trees. Obviously, some of these will be for food and that, so that looks like ideal for kind of peeling fruit or something. That's the straightest blade out the lot. I'm not sure, that might be for like scraping the skin off a lemon or a lime, Fucking, you'd be surprised these people were clever. Each one of these obviously had a different purpose, They're all different sizes and shapes for a reason. They have a different purpose. So each one of these, like, that's a screwdriver, that's an Allen key, that's a spanner. You know what I mean? Like, they all had their purpose. They weren't stupid, although everyone in the modern world thinks that we're so clever, but these people did all this stuff with their mind and their bare hands. That is fucking clever. They didn't have machines making this shit for them.
and other tools crafted from stone and animal bone, pointing to a strong fishing culture. In addition, evidence of farming had been discovered, such as remains of various plant species and signs of cattle domestication, confirming that the community practiced agriculture as well. Now what?
Irrigation, agriculture. 10,000 years. And nothing much has changed, just the amount of people and the amount of resources, really.
One of the most remarkable discoveries at the site came from its intentional burial grounds, where archaeologists identified the world's oldest known cases of tuberculosis. While Atlet Yam may not be as widely known or as mythologized as other lost cities, it remains one of the most extraordinary examples of early human settlement. It provides a rare and vivid glimpse into the daily life of a Neolithic community, reminding us that long before cities as we know them emerged, people were already living in organized, complex settlements.
Hey, what's up, guys? I found this.
Pompeii in Italy.
Yeah, Pompeii was buried under a vault. We've all heard the story of Pompeii. I'll not treat you all like you don't know, but for those who don't know, because I know that most of you will, Pompeii was buried under a volcanic eruption. If you want to watch something about it, there's lots of movies and TV programs where it's a feature in it. It's even in one of the episodes of Doctor Who. If you want to watch that, imagine living next to a volcano when it erupts. What are you going to do? There's no planes. What are you going to do? You're on an island with a volcano, and there's no planes. And there's only a certain amount of boats. It's worse than the situation on the Titanic.
Of all the lost cities discussed today, none are as well known, thoroughly excavated, or historically informative as Pompeii, the most famous archaeological site in the world. Originally founded during the Bronze Age by Greek and Etruscan settlers, Pompeii's best known as a thriving Roman town near modern-day Naples. Although it now lies about 2 kilometers or 1.2 miles inland, Pompeii was much closer to the sea in antiquity. The Romans were so enamored with the location that they transformed it into a bustling resort town on the Mediterranean, devoting resources to regular building projects throughout the 2nd century BCE. As a result of this rapid development, Pompeii reached its peak, evolving into a vibrant city complete with densely populated suburbs and an estimated population of between 10,000 and 20,000 people, with double that number residing in the surrounding farms and villages.
Look at the size of that for an ancient city. Bloody hell, look at that. That is literally it's incredible, isn't it? It's incredible. One of the reasons that Pompeii is the most famous site in the world is because it was buried under ash. I hope I'm not getting this wrong and it's the name of something else. I do make that mistake sometimes. It preserved everything perfectly, almost instantly, preserved. Not everything, but things were preserved in such a state where they remained perfectly intact for longer than they should if that hadn't been the case. Like, if it was just left to the wind and the rain, it would have all fell apart much more than the fact it was kind of crystallized, or... I can't think of the word.
1,000 and 20,000 people, with double that number residing in the surrounding farms and villages. In 79 CE, Pompeii was famously buried under volcanic ash.
Thank God I was right. For a second I was doubting myself. Yeah, so because they were buried under ash and, like, you know, pyroclastic flow and, you know, bad stuff from a volcano, it perfectly preserved a lot of things that otherwise would not have been preserved. The same reason with that thing underwater. Now, normally water decays a lot of things, but there are some things it helps to preserve, like stone, I think. Not stone, what is it? Sounds so stupid. Literally, water cuts through stone. What am I on about? But in certain conditions, things are... what's the word? Decay less. So the highest prized place to find dinosaur bones would be like in a desert, because there's no water to have decayed the bones and stuff. You know, it won't be washed away, and the best dinosaur graveyards are often found in like deserts. It's not found in like a wet rainforest. So that's the reason Pompeii is the most famous archaeological site in the world, because it was preserved the most for study, if that makes sense. It was the easiest to study because of what happened. There we go. I got there in the end.
Following the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, an event whose exact date remains a topic of debate. Although the city was never entirely lost to memory, its precise location was forgotten for about 1,500 years until locals rediscovered it in the late 16th century. Wow. Official excavations...
1,500 years. That's a long time to forget about a city. A long time.
Began in 1748 and are widely regarded as the beginning of modern archaeology as a scientific discipline. Since that time, excavation efforts have continued almost without interruption, paused only by major events such as world wars or natural disasters, and indeed they remain ongoing to this day. While the volcanic eruption was a tragedy for the people of Pompeii, it later provided invaluable benefits to researchers. Layers of volcanic ash acted as a protective shield, preserving the city nearly exactly as it was on that fateful day. Thousands of structures remain intact, including shops, taverns, temples, public baths, and latrines, as well as schools and homes, which range from modest dwellings to sprawling villas capable of outshining even modern mansions. Many of these upscale villas feature large atriums with rectangular pools, private gardens, and intricate floor mosaics, depicting everything from mythological scenes to the homeowners' business ventures. In addition, the city's artifacts, written records, and even graffiti have offered extraordinary insight into the everyday life of Pompeii.
Look at that. That looks like a Cupid thing, or like it's definitely something religious or mythology. I love ancient stuff, mate. It's so cool.
Shedding light on aspects from trade and commerce to the crude humor that was appreciated by ancient Romans. One of Pompeii's most iconic and haunting features, though, is the collection of plaster casts made from the voids left in the ash where victims' bodies once lay. By carefully pouring plaster into these cavities, archaeologists were able to create detailed impressions of those who perished, often shown frozen in their final moments, curled up or crying out. These casts offer a powerful and humanizing glimpse into the catastrophe, unlike anything else in the archaeological record. Perhaps most astonishing of all is that Pompeii has not yet been fully excavated, with new discoveries continue to be made regularly. In 2025, archaeologists uncovered an entire city block that included a laundry, a bakery, and a grand private residence. Yet, remarkably, nearly 1/3 of the ancient city still remains buried, just waiting to be explored.
Fucking adverts. Piss me right off.
Mohenjo-Daro in Pakistan. During the Bronze Age, several cultural powerhouses dominated large regions of the world and helped shape the societies that followed. These included the Minoans, the Hittites, the Mycenaeans, and others, many of whom remain mysterious to us today, either because of a scarcity of historical artifacts or because their writing systems have yet to be fully deciphered. Yet among these enigmatic Bronze Age civilizations, few were as regionally dominant, long-lasting, or puzzling as the Indus Valley Civilization, also known as the Harappans. At their height, the Harappans ruled over an area stretching from present-day northeastern Afghanistan to northwestern India. They began building urban centers around 3300 BC and sustained a significant presence in the region until approximately 1300 BC, establishing them as the world's earliest known urban culture. Now, despite their widespread influence, only two major cities have been uncovered to date, Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. The latter is located on the right bank of the Indus River, about 30 kilometers or 19 miles south of Larkana in southern Pakistan. Mohenjo-Daro was founded around 2600 BC and thrived for roughly 700 years before being abandoned around 1900 BC, likely due to climate change and flooding that rendered agriculture increasingly unsustainable. Over time, the site became naturally buried under layers of sediment and soil, and both the city and its civilization gradually faded from memory.
That is one thing that is very common, is that you have all these really successful cities, ancient cities all over the world, that all of a sudden had to stop existing there and move on because their water source dried up or their trade routes were no longer accessible because of climate change or natural disasters like earthquakes and tsunamis, rising sea levels. So some of the most successful civilizations just up and stopped living there simply because they could no longer live there. There was no longer water, there was no longer food, and there was sometimes no longer trade. So there were sometimes the most successful cities in the ancient world, but they were in a poor location, so they ended up failing.
It wasn't until 1922 that R.D. Banerjee, an archaeologist with the Archaeological Survey of India, rediscovered the site while investigating earlier reports of ancient Buddhist stupa in the area. His findings revealed the remains of one of the earliest known examples of sophisticated urban planning, matched only by its sister city, Harappa, which was founded around the same time. At the heart of Mohenjo-Daro lies a fortified acropolis, once protected by ramparts and surrounded by the lower town. This lower town is distinguished by its red mud brick buildings arranged along a carefully planned grid with narrow streets and precise 90-degree intersections. Walking among these ancient streets today, one can still observe the remnants of multi-story homes whose archways bear a striking resemblance to modern doorways. Scattered throughout the city are the remains of public baths, wells, a massive granary. Communal pools with wide staircases, soak pits for sewage disposal, and even a sophisticated street drainage system designed to prevent flooding. One of the most remarkable features is the presence of private toilets in many homes, including those occupied by common citizens, which demonstrates an advanced understanding of sanitation for the time. Based on the culture that founded Mohenjo-Daro, the city is also believed to have been a major economic center. It produced intricately carved pottery, figurines, jewelry, and other artifacts, many of which have been found across Mesopotamia and the modern-day Middle East. This evidence suggests that Mohenjo-Daro was not merely a cultural hub, but also a vital trading center during the Bronze Age. Despite the discovery of numerous inscriptions at the site, the language, known as the Indus Valley Script, remains undeciphered. This pictographic script, composed of over 400 unique symbols, continues to puzzle scholars and leaves much of the civilization's story untold. What is known, however, is that Mohenjo-Daro was one of the largest cities of the Bronze Age, likely home to more than 40,000 residents at its peak. Its architectural ingenuity, careful urban planning, and preserved artifacts, including decorative seals, sculptures, and even the layout of the city, stand as enduring evidence of the sophistication and greatness of the Indus Valley civilization. And that's your Lost Cities for today. Hope you enjoyed them. I'll see you next time.
Well, that was me watching Most Incredible Lost Cities by Side Projects and presented by Simon Whistler. Like I said, there's such a degree of accuracy with scientists in what they say, because literally their career can depend on it, that it's almost impossible to correct him. All I can do is either try and dumb things down to professor level understandings of subjects, or add little bits of information on. But obviously, I don't know how this is going to work for a reaction video, but some people might enjoy it, but they could obviously just watch him without me. But I can kind of translate things a bit, I can mitigate between professor terminology and average terminology so that it's easier to understand, because that is one thing Simon does use, is very extravagant wording, because he's trying to be as accurate as possible, and he uses such good wording to do that it can sometimes be not confusing but hard to just relax and soak in. You've got to pay attention. You've literally got to pay attention and think. So I'm just trying out new things. So thanks for watching. If you've watched, have a good one. Take care. Bye.